everyone could please rise in honoring for the Lifetime Award in Achievement. The William C. Holmberg awardee for this year is the CEO of Aemetis, co-founder of Pacific Ethanol and many other companies. A little like the State of the Union, when the president makes his way through and shakes hands with friends and supporters. As the CEO of Aemetis and co-founder of Pacific Ethanol and many other companies, Eric has spent more than a couple of decades building in the bioeconomy and building the bioeconomy. He's done it in good times, he's done it in bad times, he's done it here in the United States, he's done it in India, he's done it all over the world, and through every one of those steps, he's been a fearless advocate here on this stage and elsewhere, not only for the things that he believes, but the things that he believes are right for you. He's never been afraid to speak truth to power, whether it's in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or elsewhere around the world. He's a regular figure, and I was going to say notorious, but I'll say famous in Delhi. I can attest to that. They haven't forgotten you yet over there either. And through all of this, he has maintained a composure and a passion and been always good at creating valuable companies, not just creating valuable technologies. So he does what we talked about yesterday, creates persistence engineering, because not only does the project ultimately get built and molecules get produced that make money for people and pay back their debt holders, but they also persist over the long term. And that's the hardest thing to do, is to create a system that survives. And there's a lot more detail which he will probably reflect on, but just to say that it's that kind of persistence that I wish for every one of you. I want you all to have as lengthy and successful a career, but not only to build successful projects and successful companies, but to build things that last for a very, very long time. And all our laureates are very good at doing that. Where would we be without cellulosic ethanol as pioneered by Laureate Foodie? Where would we be without the kind of policies that we have in the RVO as Laureate McAdams has advocated for? Where would we be without the development of things like alcohol to jet and how to steer a public company, and then which is Laureate McAfee and also Laureate Gruber. So with that, Eric, congratulations. Probably long overdue, but you were too young to get the award before. Certainly long since earned. But please join us for the William C. Holmberg Award Memorial Address.
Thank you, everybody, for taking a few minutes today to join us in a bit of a time of reflection, but I want to start by reflecting on the dedication that Jim and Flavia Lane have given to this industry, and Bill and his family, and their dedication to not only the conference, but also their publishing of the Daily Biofuels Digest. It's a messenger of our message to the world, and links us to people that we'll never see, never meet, but do make decisions based upon the content that the Lane family have dedicated to permeating throughout the world. And I just hope that you find a way to thank Jim and Flavia, because frankly, at midnight on desperate days when they're trying to write the next publication, they're speaking on our behalf. They're speaking our message, and they're speaking to people that we'll never get to speak to directly. So we really appreciate and are truly blessed by your work.
You're supposed to talk about yourself. Talk about me. Thank you.
Since this is an acceptance speech, I would like to thank my family for the love and support, especially my wife, Marguerite, who in addition to being a mother, she's a church leader and a successful equestrian athlete. She creates joy in our home and brings our family together so we can live our best life and pass on our blessings to future generations. I'd like to thank the team at Aemetis, our vendors, our financing partners, and our more than 40,000 shareholders. Many of our people have worked for 15 to 20 years at the company, building towards sustainable success and growth despite many challenges and delays that were often external to the company. As Governor Bradford, an early American settler and a Jim Lane ancestor, once stated, "All great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulties, and both must be enterprised and overcome, with answerable courages. At medicine and our other pursuits, we have overcome many challenges with courage and enterprise. And I thank each of the contributors to our work for your devotion to pursuing a worldwide mission that's worthwhile at Aemetis and in the other enterprises that we have built together. To start, I want to give a brief personal background to provide context for relating a few key things that I've learned during a lifetime of building and creating. I would also like to refer you to a TEDx talk that I gave in India near the Pakistani border for more personal insights about some of my motivations. I grew up on a farm in the Central Valley of California, west of Fresno, with 4 brothers on 320 acres at the end of a mile of dirt road. Playing in the dirt, building forts in dry ditches, riding on tractors while plowing, planting, and harvesting fields, and designing ramps to ride off of haystacks on bicycles, and often crashing, occupied our days. We often walked to the school bus stop before taking an hour ride to school and then walked back home on that dirt road, which I described to my children during bedtime stories when they were young, that in my mind's eye, the dirt road was uphill both ways, was 1 mile there and 2 miles back, and when it wasn't scorching hot, it was raining or snowing. In contrast to our rural farm life, my McAfee family lineage is a long line of prominent Presbyterian ministers, missionaries, academics, writers, and composers, including the president of Harvard Seminary, theologians at Stanford University, the founder of Park College in Kansas City, and Mildred Helen McAfee, who was president of Wellesley College at age 36 and went on to lead more than 80,000 women in the Navy Corps known as the Waves during World War II. These people were the heroes that set the standard for creating a valuable life. Partially as a result of these family influences, our young farming family traveled internationally while my father did agricultural advising on other projects when I was young. When I was about 8 years old, we lived in Israel, in Kibbutz Beit Hashita, near the Sea of Galilee, during nearly daily bombing. Then we lived in Corfu, Greece, before our small boat's engine failed on a dark night off the coast of Albania, which resulted in spending time in the Albanian port city of Valona during Chinese involvement in the country as peasants pushed carts in the central plaza outside our hotel. And we lived on Kodiak Island in Alaska, while my dad worked on crab fishing boats in the Bering Sea. In 1977, at age 14, I was selected to join a delegation of 32 students from the U.S. to travel to the USSR for an international youth conference. The event brought together 5,000 students from 127 countries for cultural exchange and athletic competition. I was elected president of the U.S. delegation, and we spent 5 weeks in Moscow and at the Young Pioneer Camp on the Black Sea near Yalta, meeting young people from throughout Russia, North Vietnam, and many other countries. Importantly, I spent a week walking the streets of Moscow, again as a 14-year-old, with a translator from Moscow University who had been assigned to me, where I asked locals about life in Russia during the Cold War. When we initially arrived in Moscow, we were briefed at the U.S. Embassy that the Russians would claim to have the biggest airplanes, the biggest tractors, and the most productive agricultural sector in the world. While at the Olympic-sized Camp Artek on the shores of the Black Sea, I was approached by a gray market merchant who asked to purchase my Levi's jeans. I declined, stating that Russian rubles were of no value to me since they were not exchangeable back into US dollars, and I needed to wear the jeans. That night, the Levi's were stolen from my room. I returned from the USSR trip wearing flimsy, baggy Russian jeans, a visual testimony to the failure of the USSR to produce even basic consumer products despite the bravado and supposedly wonderful top-down management of production by the socialist political leaders. As a young American teenager, the embarrassment of wearing flimsy Russian pants on my arrival back to California made a permanent impression on me regarding the ineffectual structure of the socialist and communist systems of government. I know that's a heck of a derivative from a pair of Levi's jeans, but it was very impressionable. It made quite an impression on me. These experiences also kindled my interest in international business and the need for global solutions driven by business leaders adopting innovative solutions to create jobs and new investment. During high school, my brothers and I took over 2,200 acres of farmland from our parents and our grandparents and started McAfee Farms. Over the next 20 years, we attempted innovation in a variety of crops and services in the farming business, including hand-bagged apples sold to Japan for a specific holiday in the fall, organic almonds, and a water well drilling company due to a lack of services that were available in the market. Each of these ventures showed some measure of temporary success, but did not produce long-term growth and profitability. In 1998, after converting an alfalfa field into organic alfalfa production, we imported an idea from New Zealand to move a dairy barn to the cows in order to allow cows to stay on organic pasture all the time, in order to have a much larger dairy herd. Using electric tape to move cows around the field, we built a mobile milking barn for 20 cows at a time, then moved the cows between fields every few days to graze. Originally called the Organic Pastures Dairy Company and now named Raw Farm, the business has now grown to multiple dairies, thousands of cows, and has become the world's largest raw milk producer, bottler, cheese plant, distributor, and brand, with products available at major grocery store chains across the United States. To fund our farm, I worked hard to become educated and to build businesses unrelated to farming. My interest in international business and the strategic advantages of U.S. agriculture and resources led me to get a business degree from Fresno State with an emphasis in statistics and finance while continuing to help manage our farm. Later, I became an alumni of Stanford Graduate School of Business and of Harvard Business School, as well as entrepreneur in residence at the Wharton MBA program. In 2012, I was appointed as a Global Scot by the Scottish government to advise venture capitalists and growth companies on international expansion by making investments into the U.S. and other countries. During college, I helped a leveraged buyout of a gas distribution company, then went to Los Angeles and joined the merchant bank that did multiple leveraged buyouts, building a large cement business that we sold. The funds from these enterprises helped us to survive our innovative years at McAfee Farms. After working on several turnaround companies, including a NASDAQ public company CFO when I was 27 years old, I co-founded a technology company at age 29 down in Irvine, which we built to 150 employees and about $50 million of revenues in just 3 years. We were acquired by a large company, so our young family moved to the Silicon Valley and started a venture capital firm that funded 25 startups and took 6 of the startups public. Our strategy was to build companies that enabled the internet to work, not the dot-com companies that used the infrastructure that we built. The proceeds from these enterprises allowed me to survive 20 years of innovation on our family farm. 25 years ago, NASDAQ crashed after the initial investor excitement about the internet subsided. I became interested in what markets the internet would impact and concluded that energy consumption, especially in Asia, would increase significantly as US and European lifestyles became known to other cultures. At the time, the average US consumption of crude oil in India was 1 barrel per person, compared to 25 barrels per person in the US. This insight led to me to focus on innovation in the oil and gas industry, founding 4 oil companies that we took public on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, to commercialize CO2 flood-enhanced oil recovery, advanced drilling bits for rock formations, and other innovations in China, offshore Africa, offshore Brazil, and Louisiana. In 2003, I co-founded Pacific Ethanol with a politician who was retiring from being the Secretary of State of California, seeking to supply California with ethanol as a replacement fuel when MTBE from oil refineries was outlawed in California in January 2004. 2 years after founding Pacific Ethanol, we acquired Neil Curler's ethanol marketing company, and Neil led the business as CEO to build and acquire 8 ethanol plants and grow revenues to $1.6 billion per year. Pacific Ethanol became worth almost $2 billion as a public company in 2006. But I had become interested in waste and cellulosic feedstocks for biofuels production, which was outside the corporate mission of Pacific Ethanol. So in 2006, I sold my shares in Pacific Ethanol and founded Aemetis to develop projects and technologies that utilize waste feedstocks from agriculture and other sources to produce renewable fuels. My agricultural background and international experience made it clear that the U.S. was dependent on Middle Eastern oil due to our own decisions to not develop renewable fuels through the support of innovative technology here. Ametis means the one prudent wisdom. Scottish, the one is A, and in Greek mythology, Metis is the mother of Athena. It means prudent wisdom. I believe that it is prudent wisdom for the U.S. and other countries to innovate and develop domestic sources of renewable energy to become independent from imported oil, reducing foreign wars and other challenges created by our dependence on crude oil imports. The first biofuels plant we built at Ametis was in India, a country without petroleum reserves and with extensive agricultural waste that is often burned, creating significant air pollution and health problems across the country. We expanded by acquiring and upgrading what is now the largest ethanol plant in California. Ametis has grown to be the largest producer of renewable CO2, distillers corn oil, and distillers grain for animal feed in California. We ship 2 million pounds of animal feed per day, feeding approximately 100,000 dairy cows at 80 dairies in the Central Valley of California. In 2016, California passed Senate Bill 1383 that made dairies subject to carbon emissions rules and supported capturing methane from dairy lagoons. So Ametis launched a $400 million project to build one of the world's largest networks of dairy digesters to produce RNG. We've now built 36 miles of biogas pipeline, a central upgrade facility with utility pipeline interconnect, signed 50 dairies, and have 15 dairies and their digesters operating. The business is positive cash flow and profitable with continued rapid growth for the next few years as we add dairy biogas digesters to the existing pipeline and gathering system. Here are some things I've learned from about 50 years of business and life. The United States is uniquely blessed with agricultural land and advanced production technology. Almost all other countries do not have the abundant farmland and highly productive bioenergy potential that we have across the U.S. The value of supporting rural communities as a sustainable geopolitical advantage should not be overlooked or taken for granted by our political leaders. For example, the immediate implementation of the 45Z production tax credit and congressional approval of the year-round 15% ethanol blend are geopolitical, economic, and military issues that directly impact energy independence and affordability in the U.S. We need to see bioenergy market growth and farmland economic success as a national priority. Agricultural and bioenergy innovation can take time. It only took about 28 years for Raw Farm to innovate new products, grow new markets, develop teams, build facilities, expand distributions, finance operations, and suddenly become a world leader in a new category of bioeconomy products based upon raw milk. Ametis is now an overnight success after 20 years of acquiring facilities, upgrading, adopting new processes, entering new markets, expanding financial resources in order to create a market leader in both California and India. The upcoming planned IPO of our India biofuel subsidiary this year is beginning a new phase of rapid growth for Ametis on a global basis. As industry leaders and managers, we need to persevere in the midst of legislative and financial market uncertainty while developing new technologies and building new projects while managing slower timelines than we, our investors, our families, or our teams expected, knowing that the planning and hard work are leading toward success. In the Bible, Romans 5:3 says, "We rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, character, hope." The most important element of any successes that we have achieved is due to one factor: the hard work, courage, persistence, loyalty, and good character of our people and the people with whom we do business. Thank you for this industry award, but doing important work with so many special, courageous, wonderful people, including the blessings of my loving wife and family, has been the lifetime reward. As Teddy Roosevelt said, "Far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is a chance to work hard at work worth doing. Back on the farm, when our young family would gather, my parents would teach each of us a part of a poem so we could recite the full poem together. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow once wrote in the poem, The Psalm of Life, "Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait." Thank you for your time today, and thank you for this award, which recognizes the lifetime work of so many people.